Hello, hello. Welcome back, everyone, to another Executive Table Talk sponsored by Work It Daily. My name is JT O'Donnell. I'm your host today. And as you know, this is the show that each and every week brings you insights from top executives here on LinkedIn. And we're talking about some of the hottest topics out there as well. Today's discussion is going to be around delegating, specifically delegating while remaining accountable. I love this topic. And I'm really excited because I've got three of our veteran pros here joining me today. So I want to give a shout out to Lisa, Anna, and Michael. So glad to have you all here. Lisa's background is in global marketing. Anna's background is in corporate and executive coaching and leadership. And Michael's background is in operations and finance in the NFL. So I think I'm pretty well equipped today with an all-star cast to talk about this idea of delegating, because all three of you have very, very busy lives and careers. So Lisa, I'm going to pick on you first. Let's talk a little bit about delegation and why it's so important. I mean, I can only imagine in the world of global marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. Delegating is delegating to others is an essential skill for leaders because it allows you to focus on high value activities, but it's important to do so in a way that ensures accountability. So here are some tips on how to delegate while remaining accountable. So as you start out, clearly define tasks and responsibilities. One of the things that I see constantly in organizations that go awry is not having clear tasks and responsibilities. Bob was supposed to do that. My department doesn't do that. That department does that. It happens all the time. And you've got to clearly define the tasks and responsibilities. So, what does that look like? So, clearly defining tasks is defining what you're supposed to do, what that outcome looks like, and what's the timeline. You can delegate all day long, but if you aren't defining what you're supposed to do, what the outcome is, and what the timeline is, people aren't going to get it done, or they're going to do it and they're not going to do it correctly, or you're going to have too many people doing it. There's just going to be chaos. So you've got to clearly do that. And then in terms of responsibility, let me give you an example of what that looks like, right? You can tell somebody, hey, I need you to review 5,000 documents in 24 hours to find out which is accurate and which is not. They may not have the capability to do that, the resources to do that. So you've got to make sure they've got the resources, the responsibility, and the training to do it. Another example here is if somebody is in customer service and you want them to achieve a 90% customer service rate, but you're not giving them the responsibility to give out refunds, or they've got to go up levels of leadership to be able to deal with a customer complaint, then they don't have the responsibility. So you've got to give them the resources, the responsibility, and the training to be able to handle whatever you're delegating. You also want to have check-in points. Check in. Are they facing any challenges? How can you remove roadblocks? Is something in what you've assigned them and the outcomes and the timeline need to pivot? Find out. Make those adjustments for them to make sure that you're setting them up for success. And then you also want to provide feedback. Be their coach. Cheer them on. Tell them that they've got it. And if you need to provide constructive criticism, do so from a positive coaching standpoint. You don't want to sit there and go, aha, I gotcha. I'm going to set you up for failure. You really want to set them up for success and do it in a positive way. And you do want to monitor their progress. You do want to make sure that they're on point to hit their goals, to hit the outcomes. And like I said, pivot where you need to, because the last thing is ultimately you are responsible as a leader. Even though you've delegated it, you are the responsible party, and you need to make sure that you understand that. And so just think about those tips, because these tips can help you build trust and confidence as a leader and among your team.
Oh my gosh. I love that so much. So as you were saying all that, it reminded me once of a business advisor said to me, JT, what is your time worth? What's your hourly rate? And then he said, anything that you do right now that you could pay somebody less of a rate to do that should be delegated. And it was the first time that ever made sense to me that, you want to free yourself up to do the high payoff activities for your rate. But that's really easier said than done, because you just pointed out that just delegating to someone isn't enough. And I loved how you talked about not just giving them the training, but the resources. That example you gave of if they need to be able to go up 3 levels, like, you have to give them, otherwise they can't do it. And then it is on you as a leader, and I've seen a lot of executives delegate improperly and literally fail in all of those 3 things that you talked about. So I love the overview. I love the structure. That was amazing. And I know adding on to that is Anna. Anna, you coach executives on a regular basis. I'm sure you've seen what I just talked about. So let's talk a little bit about how they can avoid becoming, the executive that everybody hates getting tasks from.
Exactly. And I think we've probably most probably in our careers have had experiences like that. And I greatly appreciated what Lisa brought, and especially those very, very clear stories. It always adds a lot of value. I wanted to, as I was thinking for our session for today, I was thinking about the level up of what delegation and accountability is all part of. And this deals with performance management, which is at the backbone of organizations, right? At the backbone of productivity, at the backbone of results, etc. So I wanted to make sure, and in addition to conveying a couple of topics around fundamentals within a team, talk a little bit about the roadblocks as well, which hopefully for some of you is also helpful. So it's the other side of the coin. So as a foundation, it's very important within a team to create, as a leader, as a manager, to create the psychological safety and the trust. And these psychological safety has to do with this shared belief of, we can speak our minds, we can ask for help, we can raise our hands, we can brainstorm if we need to, we can really be part of a team and leverage each other, if you may. And one very important component is we are able to make mistakes and not die in the process of doing that. Learning is an intricate part of creating a psychological safety culture in your team. So as I've mentioned, the foundation would be psychological safety and trust. And then if I bring it to some of the probably most common roadblocks that I've seen in my career, definitely lack of trust, which addresses one of the foundational aspects. Of course, if I don't trust you as a team member or as my manager, I'm not going to come and tell you that I'm not understanding what you want me to do, or I'm not going to go with one of my peers and ask for help because these may not be perceived as either politically correct, or I'm going to put myself in a light of I don't have the necessary capabilities, etc. So that would be one of the roadblocks. Another big one is fear of failure. If I don't have a clear understanding of what I need to do, fear of failure can prevent myself and other team members from even delegating or asking for support or taking responsibility of more important tasks. So if I am going to miss a deadline, rather than, oh my God, it's in a week, rather than talking to my manager today, I am going to wait until the very last minute and try to figure out how I'm going to come up with a solution, of course, with a lot of stress and with a lot of, not very quality products. So this fear of failure is one of the biggest ones, roadblock wise, that I would say. Thirdly, out of 6 is unclear expectations. And this is where everything starts, right? If I'm delegated a particular task or project, etc., and the expectations of what I need to generate are not clear, and I don't have that peace of mind or psychological safety as part of my team, or trust in my manager, I'm not going to ask for clarifications. It's definitely going to create some confusion and probably not a very good end result. Number 4 would be probably micromanagement, and I think we've all have been subject to this, and it's pretty self-explanatory, but it also has to do, of course, with lack of trust. It's connected, lack of communication, which evidently is I would say, the red thread that connects all of this. And lastly, the lack of skills or capabilities that Lisa was alluding to. If I don't have the right resources or the right skill set, and I'm assigned something, a project or a task, and I don't feel safe in saying, this is not my area of expertise and I need help, then you can imagine what that end product is most probably going to look like. So those are probably the top 6 roadblocks that I could think of. And of course, with a most important foundation of psychological safety and trust.
I love that you brought up psychological safety, and there's a bunch of people in the chat that are cheering you on for that. For me, I feel like this really became mainstream post-pandemic. I think, as we were coming out of the pandemic, a lot of people finally admitted to, not feeling psychologically safe, really worried about speaking how they were feeling or how they were doing, right? Think about, just for the longest time, we were told you couldn't cry in the office. Like that you couldn't show emotion, And so when you think about the level set that was put in place, and how could people feel safe having stuff delegated to them with that fear of, gee, what will happen if I admit that I'm wrong? And the other one that really stood out to me, and is one that I personally in my own life as an executive have worked hard to overcome for people, is the fear of failure. I regularly told my team that I would threaten to install a failure bell in the office to ring our success when we failed. So instead, I would just loudly, back when we were around, yell ding, ding, ding. And now when we're virtual, I'll be like, ding, ding, ding. We're failing forward. That if we're not failing regularly, then we're not trying hard enough. Right. Because they're experiments. And the only way you learn and grow is through experimentation. And to not be doing that these days in an aggressive way and feeling comfortable and safe doing it, right, is huge. So I love all the frameworks that you brought out there, Anna. All so important. But thank you for calling out psychological safety, because it's an important one. Yeah. And speaking of safety, let's move on to sports, Michael, because I think talking about delegating in your line of work, there has to be a lot of that going on, and talk about trust, right? There has to be a lot of trust. So what do you think about when you think about this dilemma?
Yes, as an executive, I always take the position that I'm responsible for anything that happens, whether it's good or bad in my operations. I'm responsible for the outcome. Unlike authority and responsibility, accountability cannot be delegated. I own accountability. That's me. And going back with the team, I love what Lisa and Anna had to say. Lisa, I like how she said she wanted to set the team up for success, and I love that. And Anna, create trust. It's my responsibility to build a team that can achieve deliverables. It's my job as a leader to ensure that the right people are in the right place. I am responsible for the team members, that they're equipped with the technology and the knowledge to perform at a very high level. But most importantly, leadership must let the team know that they need to know why they're at this task and how they fit into the big pictures. Teams need to know what's at stake. What if we fail? What's at stake? What does this mean? As a company's mission, goals, and competitors change, leadership is tasked with making sure that the necessary adjustments to ensure that the team can pivot to meet the upcoming challenges. Lastly, team leaders inspire the commitment of the team. People get excited about the possibilities, but to commit, they have to understand their roles in meeting the challenges. Thank you.
I love that you focused on accountability, because I think if you're that upfront with your team and say, look, if this fails, I'll take ownership of it. Yes. Because it's mine. I'll take ownership. But what I'm asking all of you is, what do I need to give you to succeed? Don't wait until the last minute to tell me, how do we work as a team so that you can do this work and together we can succeed at this? Because if it goes south, I will own it. But I still need you all to tell me. I'll give you as much as I know how to give. But I think that's something that sometimes gets missed, is that we don't have all the answers as executives. Even when we delegate, think one of the nice things, I can think of times where I've delegated something to someone on my team and they end up doing it better than I ever could because they came at it with a different perspective or a fresh set of eyes, right? So as long as I can look at them and say, you know, I support you and I'll give you whatever you need, but can you tell me what you need? Because I'm not even sure what you might need in this situation. I think we have to have that level of honesty and transparency in order to take that accountability. But I love that. I mean, just the way you were saying it, Michael, I think anytime somebody sees a leader saying that I get it, I'm accountable, I'm on the hook,
Right.
you know, I'll own it, I'll take the fall, and then really follow through with that, you know,
Right,
having integrity,
absolutely.
follow through with that, I think
Thank
is
you.
cool, so important. So let's take some questions from the audience. Folks, if you have a question, please do what Melody did here. Put the word question in all caps and then post your question. I know the team would love to answer it. And I'm going to give a shout out to Melody. Execs, she's asking us, a big part of building trust is being approachable. How do you show others or demonstrate that you are approachable for safe comments and questions? Lisa, I'm going to throw that one to you first.
Oh, I love it, Melody. Thank you so much. You know, we talked about this yesterday on our executive table talk, which was influencing, right? And it kind of goes, part of that is that you need to be approachable. And part of that is influencing. And you need to use some of those skills and share and coach your team on some of those influencing skills. And that is listening and hearing and helping and understanding what people's problems are and their goals are and relating to them so that you can solve their problems. So when you're delegating an assignment and a task to them, you want to be able to listen to what others across the organization need and want, and you want to be last to speak in meetings because you want to use those listening skills. You know, all of these kinds of things are really important so that you're building trust across an organization, not just with you and your team, but you're coaching your team to be able to build those kind of skill sets so that they can influence and they can drive results. So those are the kinds of things that you're building trust with them, and then you're teaching them how to build trust across the organization. It's really key because then they're going to start driving influence and results, and then you're going to all boats rise. All boats rise when everybody influences and everybody's using these great skill sets of understanding, problem solving, listening, all of that.
I love it. I love it. That listening one was so cool. And if you guys didn't check out yesterday's ETT, definitely go back and watch it. It was amazing on influencing with stakeholders within the organization. And I'm going to bump it down to you. What additional thoughts do you have on this subject?
One of the most important things I believe in, when you first arrive into a management or a leadership role, is really get to know your team and for your team to get to know you. And for everybody to understand, what the optimal communication style is, what the expectations are for the team, etc. And that becomes a consistent play. I have found that one of the biggest and most important strategies that any leader or manager can do is really get to know their team and really understand where they're coming from, what gives them meaning, what is important to them, what are they trying to achieve as part of their career, etc. And while doing that process, the leader very specifically and intentionally and humanly can build the trust and can build relationships with not only with the team as a total, but also with individuals. And I love what Lisa was just describing relative to those, use those active listening skills, 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? That's the ratio. So very much put that into place. So for me, it's in order to build trust, you really have to get to know your people and for them to know you. And don't hide behind your screen, your doors, etc. Get out there and be vulnerable with them. That's what I've seen works really, really well.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I know that some leaders don't want to hear that, but today you don't have a choice. You absolutely need to get to know your team because they each have different communication styles and nuances to them and want to be, spoken to different ways, and to tap into that, right? To build that rapport. I love that you talk about that, Anna. Michael, what about you? Any additional thoughts on how to be approachable?
Yes, I like the idea of being approachable. Like I said before, I like to be the first response, not the last resort of the team. I want to be able to, they can come to me if they have a question, and don't wait to the 10th hour to say I have a problem. And it's like, why? I guess I got to go to the mic. I got to go to the leader, the team to solve this. No, come to me first. Or if you at least come to me and say, look, I've worked on it. I can't get there. I'm almost there. But I like to be the first response, rather than the last resort.
And I think you mentioning it that way, right? Communicating to your team that, come to me, really come to me. But following through on that, Anna mentioned keeping your door open. I just want to add to this conversation and say that I've worked with a lot of executives over the years who don't realize that just their facial expressions and body language is making them not look approachable. You have to look like someone that they can walk up to and have a conversation. Am I expecting you to have a smiling, toothy grin all the time? No, I'm not looking for you to change who you are. If you're a more serious professional, you are, but that means you need to go a bit more on the offensive or be proactive and say, look, don't be afraid to come see me. And I tend to have a serious face, but I'm really listening to you. Something has to be done there. If people aren't feeling like they can really come up and tell you, and especially when something's immediately going wrong, so that you can be that first line as you're talking about, Michael. So executives need to be paying attention to that, most definitely. And I love that you asked this question, Melody. Thanks for that. I want to switch gears here for a second, executives, because we had an interesting comment. Dickinson is asking us, how do you balance leadership with multitasking? So I think when we come back to what this is about, today's session is all about delegating, but still remaining accountable. That is part of the problem, right? As leaders, we have to multitask. And there's all these studies that are out now that say that multitasking is bad, that you should learn to just task and then task and then task. And that's great and all. But as leaders, we just have a lot going on at the same time, right? So let's talk about that. Can any of you give some tips or insights on how you balance that? So how you make sure that you're not taking on too much, and how you recognize when maybe you should be delegating so that you're not overworked. Anna, got any thoughts on that? I'll go to you first.
Absolutely. And definitely multitasking. I'm in the camp of, the more we know and the more we learn about this topic, the more we understand that we're basically, rather than doing multiple things at the same time, we are basically switching very, very rapidly between tasks. And there is a cost to that from a brain energy perspective, and therefore you get drained faster. That is one of the invoices that we pay for multitasking. So I think for this great question that Dixon is asking, I would probably recommend or suggest putting time in calendars for focused work. So for example, there is like an 8 to 10 or a 7 to 9, whatever time really works for you, with no distractions, no notification, turn off the notifications in your devices, etc., and plug that literally into your calendar. And that is your focus work, where you are going to do all of the critical stuff of the day, and maybe allot a half an hour in the second part of the day, and just protect those hours, so that everybody in your team knows and understands that those are times that are basically taken. So that would be one piece. The other piece is, as you evidently what you said, JT, is very true, right? When you use and you are in the day-to-day, in the grind, it's very difficult to stay pure into one specific thing. It takes breaking habits and coming full circle. So it takes time to get you to that type of approach. But we can use techniques like Pomodoro approach, or a Pomodoro technique, where you do focus work for 25 minutes, then you take a break for 5, then you come back and do another 25, and then you take 15 minutes of a break. So the idea with this type of technique is basically, again, come back to laser focus, and then go back to taking a break so that your brain can recharge. One of the ideas, finally, that I would bring and hopefully bring it full circle to Dixon's point on leadership is you could potentially do some of these work without devices with your team, so that allows for creative thinking, for good discussions, for insights, etc. And you allot for only humans in that session of an hour once a week, for example. So that is going to really promote not only the most brain power, but it's also going to be role modeling for your for your team. So those are some thoughts.
I love it. I love it. Lisa, what about you? Got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I start my week in terms of listing out everything that needs to be done. And then I prioritize what are the high value things that are going to move the business objectives within the organization, to make sure that as the week goes on, because I know that I'm going to get pulled in 100 different things, here are the 1 or 2 things that I really need to stay focused in on from a leadership capability to move the needle. And then I know that with my team, I need to spend time coaching, training, giving them my attention where it needs, because I've got to make sure that they are the up and coming leaders of the organization. So I've got to help them where they need me. So I've got to make sure I've got time focused to them. And then I also have time focused to unexpected urgent matters that come up. And then I'm also going to go from 60,000 feet all the way down to ground level. So I've got to allocate time for that. So that's how my week is set up. And I've got to make sure that I'm doing the high value down to the ground, down to coaching. And I've got my week set up managing it that way.
I felt like you were just describing me as well. I think we are very similar. That is like frighteningly similar at how we do this.
Right.
Like we were coached by the same person, Lisa. That's like scary to me. Michael, what about you? Any additional thoughts on this?
Yes. Sometimes we're short-staffed, and there are a lot of moving parts a lot of times, and sometimes we work in a very fast-paced environment. So even though we may start out the day with a plan, we have 3 to 5 things that we want to get done. One phone call can throw a wrench in all those plans. So we have to be ready and be flexible as leaders, and we have to find our way. Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. I agree with you. I love that you brought out the flexibility piece, because that does happen as leaders, right? And we talk about balance so much. I think I just want to close this session. As leaders, we're always talking about work-life balance and balancing this. There is no balance there. You know what I mean? There's it gets to here and you try to bring it back, and I think it's more of a seesaw effect that I see when it comes to things. But I mean, that's what makes our work interesting and exciting, right? I mean, that's why we're all executives, pushing the limits, because we like those challenges. Executives, this was an amazing, amazing conversation. First of all, thank you to all our participants today. Thank you for your questions. Folks, all of these executives are here on LinkedIn dropping incredible amounts of knowledge and wisdom. They are all in creator mode on LinkedIn. And what that means is they've got feeds full of insight and information in their areas of expertise. So please jot their names down right now while you're still here on LinkedIn. Go over, follow them, first of all, so that you can automatically see their information, but also invite them to connect and customize that connection request and tell them that you saw them here on ETT, okay? Because I want them to know where you found them. Excellent. Executives, thank you so much. Loved having you here. Can't wait to have you back on here again. Folks, until next time, remember, if you want to win, you got to work it daily, okay? We'll see you on the next Executive Table Talk. Bye-bye, everyone.